Somewhere in your house right now, there's probably a small bottle of castor oil sitting behind the vitamins, half full, bought for one reason, used once, and forgotten. Most people treat it like a museum piece. Grandma's laxative, something you take when you're desperate and hold your nose doing it. But here's the thing almost nobody explains. Castor oil isn't just another oil chemically, it's the odd one out in the entire oil family. And once you understand exactly why it behaves the way it does, you stop guessing at how to use it, and you start using it on purpose. So today, we're not just going to run through a list. I'm going to teach you the actual material first, what's in it, why it's thick, why it clings, why it doesn't go rancid the way kitchen oils do. Then I'm going to walk you through the exact process for each job, step by step, with the amounts, the timing, and the reason behind every step. Because if you know why a step exists, you'll never do it wrong, and you'll be able to figure out uses I don't even cover here. Let's start with what this stuff actually is, because everything downstream depends on it. Castor oil is pressed from the seed of the castor bean plant. And right off the top, let's clear up the thing everybody's heard. Yes, the raw bean contains ricin, which is genuinely dangerous. But ricin is a protein, and it stays behind in the pressed mash. It does not carry over into the oil. Commercial castor oil is tested for it. The bottle in your cabinet is not a poison. Just don't go planting the beans and chewing on them. Now here's what makes it different from every other oil in your house. Roughly 90% of castor oil is a single fatty acid called ricinoleic acid, and that one fatty acid carries an extra oxygen atom hanging off the middle of its chain. Olive oil doesn't have that. Coconut oil doesn't have that. Motor oil definitely doesn't have that.
That one little hook changes three things, and those three things are the reason castor oil does what it does. The first is thickness. Those oxygen hooks grab onto each other, so the molecules drag as they slide past one another. That's viscosity. Castor oil pours about like cold honey, and it holds that thickness across a huge temperature range. That's exactly why old racing engines ran castor-based oil. It stayed slick when everything else thinned out and gave up. The second is that it clings. It's what's called a polar oil, which just means one end of the molecule is slightly charged, and it's genuinely attracted to metal, to wood grain, to skin, to keratin. Thin oils sit on a surface and run off it. Castor oil grabs the surface and stays there. And the third is that it doesn't dry and it doesn't go rancid fast. It's a non-drying oil, so it will never harden into a varnish film the way linseed oil does, and it resists oxidation, so it won't turn into that sour, sticky, foul-smelling mess that vegetable oil leaves behind on a cutting board. Thick, clingy, stable. Hold those three words in your head. Every single method that follows is just one of those three properties doing its job. Before we go any further, let's talk about buying it, because this is where people waste money going both directions. Look for three words on the label. Cold pressed, which means it wasn't cooked in the extraction and the fatty acids weren't beat up. Hexane-free, which means they squeezed it out mechanically instead of washing it out with solvent, and packaged in a dark bottle, amber or cobalt, because light is what breaks these oils down over time. You do not need a fancy salon brand. An 8-ounce bottle of cold-pressed, hexane-free castor oil runs somewhere around $8 to $12. That's about $1.25 an ounce. And almost every use on this list takes drops, not spoonfuls.
That bottle is a 2-year supply for most households. You'll also see black castor oil, sometimes called Jamaican black castor oil. That one's roasted before pressing, which gives it ash content and a higher pH. Some folks swear by it for hair. It is not better for tools, wood, or leather. For everything mechanical, stick with the plain cold pressed. One more thing before the methods. There are 3 rules that apply to nearly every use, and if you learn these, you'll stop making the 2 mistakes everybody makes. Rule 1, use less than you think. This oil is 3 to 5 times thicker than what you're used to. A drop of castor oil covers what would take a teaspoon of something thin. Over-apply, and you get a sticky film that collects dust, which is the #1 complaint people have, and it's always self-inflicted. Rule 2, warm it or cut it. If it's too thick to spread evenly, either set the bottle in a cup of hot tap water for 2 minutes or blend it with a thinner carrier oil. Warming drops the viscosity without changing the chemistry at all. It thickens right back up once it's in place, which is exactly what you want. Rule 3, always apply to a clean, dry surface. Because it clings so aggressively, it will lock in whatever's already sitting there. Oil over dirt just makes greasy dirt. Clean first every time. Alright, let's put it to work. The first job is squeaks, and this is the simplest demonstration of everything I just explained. Most people reach for a spray lubricant when a door hinge screeches, and that works for about 2 weeks. Those spray products are mostly solvent by volume. The solvent flushes the joint out, evaporates, and leaves a very small amount of light oil behind, which then creeps down your trim and drips onto your floor. Here's the process instead. Open the door and find the top of the hinge pin, that seam where the pin head sits down into the barrel. Wipe it with a dry rag first.
Put one single drop of castor oil right on that seam. Then open and close the door slowly. 3 full swings. That slow motion is what pumps the oil down inside the barrel by capillary action. Don't swing it fast, you'll just fling it. Wipe the outside of the hinge clean when you're done. That's it. Because it doesn't evaporate and it doesn't run, that one drop typically outlasts a spray application by months. The exact same process handles pruning shears, household scissors, and any hand tool with a pivot. One drop on the pivot screw, work the blades open and closed 5 times to draw it in, wipe the outside on shears. That thick film does double duty, it kills the squeal and it blocks moisture off the pivot, where rust always starts first. The second job is rust prevention on carbon steel, and this is where the clinging property earns its keep. Carbon steel knives, axes, chisels, plane irons, they rust if the weather so much as thinks about turning. Thin spray oils evaporate off. Heavy grease works but turns into a dust magnet. Here's the method. Clean the steel and get it completely dry. If you just washed a knife, wipe it and let it air a minute, because trapping a water film under an oil film is how you get rust under a coating. Put about a drop of castor oil on a dry rag, not on the blade. Wipe the full surface of the metal. Then take a second clean dry rag and buff it hard until the blade looks almost dry. That buffing step is the one everybody skips, and it's the one that matters. You're not leaving a coat on there. You're leaving a microscopically thin polar film that's chemically attracted to the steel and physically blocking oxygen and moisture from reaching it. Buffed properly, the handle won't feel greasy and the blade won't feel tacky. Third, sticking drawers, windows, and tracks. Old wooden drawer slides and sliding vinyl window channels bind, because they're bone dry and the friction is dragging on raw material. Wax works but wears off. Grease attracts grit and turns into a black paste. Process: pull the drawer all the way out or open the window all the way. Vacuum or brush the track, because there's always sand and lint in there. Wipe the track with a barely damp cloth and let it dry fully. Then put a few drops on a dry cloth and wipe a thin layer along the running surfaces only. Not the sides, not the face. Slide it back and forth 6 or 8 times to spread it evenly. Since it doesn't dry out or gum up, that track keeps sliding smooth for a long stretch. But do a light cleaning first every time you reapply, or you're just building layers. Fourth, adhesive and sticky residue. Price stickers, label glue, tape gunk. Solvent removers work, but they stink. They can cloud plastic and they can lift finishes. Here's why castor oil handles it. Most of those adhesives are held together partly by nonpolar attraction, and oil gets in between and breaks that grip. The thickness is the advantage here because a thin oil runs off a vertical surface before it ever gets a chance to work. Castor oil sits there. Process: scrape off whatever paper peels off dry. Put a few drops directly over the remaining glue, enough to cover it, and set a timer for 2 full minutes. Don't rush it. You're waiting for penetration, not doing anything with your hands. Then wipe with a paper towel using firm pressure in one direction. Repeat once if there's a stubborn patch. Finish with dish soap and warm water to cut the oil off the surface. Test it on a hidden spot first if it's painted or plastic. That's a general rule for any oil on any finish. Fifth, wood conditioning, and I want to be honest about the trade-offs on this one. Castor oil resists rancidity, which is exactly why it beats out olive or vegetable oil for wooden spoons, bowls, and cutting boards. Those kitchen oils go sour in the grain, and your board starts smelling like an old rag. Process: wash and dry the board completely, and I mean give it several hours overnight if you can. Warm the oil in hot water for a couple minutes so it spreads. Rub a thin layer over the whole board, edges and end grain included, because end grain is where moisture gets in. Let it sit overnight so it can penetrate. In the morning, wipe off everything that didn't soak in. That wipe-off step is not optional. Leftover surface oil is what makes a board feel tacky. The honest caveat: food-grade mineral oil is still the most common recommendation for boards specifically, because it's completely inert and never varies. Castor oil works, and it works well. But if you're conditioning a board you use for raw meat every day, know that mineral oil is the conventional pick, and there's a reason for it. For salad bowls, spoons, and handles, castor oil is excellent. Sixth, leather, boots, belts, work gloves, sheaths. Leather is skin and it cracks when the fibers dry and stiffen. Process: clean it first with a damp cloth and let it dry all the way. Never oil over mud, you'll grind that grit right into the hide. Test on the back of the tongue or an inside seam, because oil darkens leather, and on light-colored leather, it darkens it a lot.
If you're happy with the test spot, work a few drops into the leather with an old rag using small circles, following the flex lines where it creases. Let it sit overnight. Buff off the excess in the morning. Skip this on suede and nubuck entirely. Oil mats the nap and you will not get it back. Alright, we're right about halfway through, and the last group is the one people ask about the most. If this has been useful so far, go ahead and hit subscribe so you catch the next one.
Now let's talk about skin and hair, and here's where I want to be careful, because this is where the internet oversells things hardest. The clinging property is the whole story. Most lotions are mostly water, and water evaporates off your skin in minutes. Castor oil forms an occlusive barrier, meaning it physically slows the water leaving your skin. It's not adding moisture, it's holding in what's already there. That distinction matters because it tells you when it'll work and when it won't. For cracked heels, the process is soak or shower first so the skin is actually hydrated. That's the step that gets skipped. Pat mostly dry, leaving the skin slightly damp. Massage a small amount into the heels and the cracked areas. Pull on old socks. Sleep in it. You're trapping the water you just added, which is why the soak comes first. For cuticles and brittle nails, 1 drop on the back of your hand, then rub it into the nail beds before bed. Same principle, same reason it works. For lips, a small dab rubbed in. Castor oil shows up as a primary ingredient in a lot of expensive lip products for exactly this reason. It's glossy, it's heavy, and it stays put. For hair, here's the mistake. Do not put straight castor oil on your head. It's the consistency of syrup. It weighs hair down, and it's genuinely difficult to rinse out, to the point where people yank out hair fighting with it. Cut it, mix it half and half with coconut oil, or with jojoba or almond, whichever you've got. Massage it through the lengths, focusing on the ends where breakage happens. Let it sit 30 minutes, then. And this is the step nobody tells you. Put shampoo directly on the dry oiled hair before you add any water. Work it in, then wet it. Shampoo grabs oil far better when it isn't fighting a layer of water first. Now the honest part. Castor oil does not make new hair grow out of an empty follicle. What it does is reduce breakage, and a lot of thinning is breakage, hairs snapping off before they reach full length. Reducing breakage makes hair look fuller. That's real, and it's worth doing, but it is not a treatment for actual hair loss, and anybody telling you it is selling something. Same for eyebrows. Coat them lightly with a clean spoolie or cotton swab before bed. Keep it out of your eye. It protects what's there. It doesn't conjure what isn't. For earwax, 1 drop of gently warmed oil, head tilted, let it sit 5 minutes, then let it drain. And here's the honest limit. Do not do this if you have ear tubes, a perforated eardrum, drainage, or ear pain. Those are all reasons to see a doctor instead. And never chase wax with a cotton swab, because all you're doing is packing it tighter against the drum. Which brings me to my last method, and this one's outside entirely. If moles or voles are tearing up your yard, castor oil is a genuinely effective repellent, and it's worth understanding why, because it's not what people assume. It doesn't kill anything. It soaks into the soil and coats the grubs and earthworms those animals feed on with a bitter taste they can't tolerate. When the food goes bad, they relocate. Process. Mix 4 ounces of castor oil with 2 tablespoons of liquid dish soap and stir it until it's uniform. That soap is not optional. It's an emulsifier, and without it, the oil will not mix into water. It'll just float and pour out in slicks. Add that mixture to a watering can and fill with warm water. Then drench directly over the tunnel lines and mounds and water it in afterwards so it carries down into the root zone where the grubs actually live. 2 honest notes on this. It pushes them off treated ground. So treat your whole problem area, not one patch, or you're just hurting them across the yard. And it washes out over time, so plan on reapplying after heavy rain and roughly monthly through the active season. A few safety points to close on. Do a patch test on your inner forearm and wait a day before using it broadly on skin, because castor allergy is uncommon but real. Don't take it internally as a laxative without talking to somebody. It's a strong stimulant laxative, and it can cause cramping and dehydration. Pregnant women should not take it internally at all. It can induce contractions. Keep it out of your eyes, and store the bottle capped dark and cool. So that's the whole thing. 1 oil, 3 properties, thick, clingy, and stable, and a dozen jobs that all trace straight back to those 3. If you like breaking down everyday household fixes to the simple science that makes them work, subscribe to the channel. Tell me in the comments which of these you're trying first, or if you've got a castor oil use I missed, because I read every one of them. And YouTube thinks you'll like this video next. So check it out, and I'll see you in the next episode.